Sri Lanka's most powerful news brand.
Coming to you live and direct from the Newsfirst studio here in Colombo, Sri Lanka. This is your primetime news bulletin. A very good evening. I'm Shane Silva.
And I'm Dasnia Fadda. Let's start off with a look at tonight's headlines.
Gazette notification issued declaring railway service as an essential service approved in Parliament. Strike continues despite orders. 3 members of National Freedom Front receive membership of Sri Lanka Freedom Party. Farmers in Ampara take to streets demanding urea. Demonstration staged by those who did not receive compensation due to the Central Expressway.
As the strike action launched by railway unions continues unabated, the General Manager of Sri Lanka Railways has ordered all station masters, engineers and guards serving on a contract basis to report to work immediately.
A statement issued by Sri Lanka Railways also notes that an opportunity has been given for engineers, guards and station masters who have retired to return to service. The Ministry of Transport says a special bus service has been launched to ensure that students sitting for the GCE ordinary level examinations tomorrow are not inconvenienced. Additional General Manager of Railways, Vijay Samarasinghe, says that the maximum effort is being made to ensure that all major train turns are in operation tomorrow.
It is wrong to use the general public to win your own demands. A speedy solution is needed for this issue. The government has to take every measure to do this, either the easy way or the hard way. Asking them to return to work nicely, saying things like students are sitting for the GCE ordinary level examination, so please have some sympathy, is not going to work in this country, and it never has. Trains have been delayed. We have nothing to say to them. We have no work because of the train strike. This has been made an essential service. So what we have to do is to get the military at least to run the trains, or else this is not going to work. They must use force on the train drivers, just like they did for the doctors. There is no other way to do this.
Meanwhile, representatives of the unions that are participating in the strike convened this evening.
We have lodged a complaint with the International Labour Organization and we will be filing a case against the government for attempting to suppress our union action with an extraordinary gazette notification. All of our members have received letters noting that they are being considered to have vacated their posts. I say this to all station masters. Do not fear. We are accountable for your service. Do not take responsibility for any of these letters. If any letter is addressed to you, refuse to accept it. The government does not wish to ensure that ordinary level students arrive at their examination centres. We met with the Transport Minister and told him very clearly that the Prime Minister should get involved in this and give a clear decision, and that we would then report to duty and not leave these children stranded. But while the government has been carrying out threatening actions, we have not received any offers of talks. We can stand straight and return to work. We will continue with this action no matter what happens to us until our wages are increased. We will continue with the strike until our increment is approved via a cabinet paper.
The extraordinary gazette notification issued by the President declaring railway services an essential service was adopted in Parliament today. The motion received 52 yes votes and only 8 votes against. Here are some of the views expressed in Parliament today over the ongoing strike.
I first call on the President and the Transport Minister not to carry out this inhumane act. How will a child sit for the examination after their father receives a letter informing them that they have been sacked? As the JVP, we are opposed to this gazette notification. You are using a very wrong law to oppress trade unions. Since the Deputy Minister of Transport is here, we call on him to immediately cease issuing letters informing them that they have vacated their posts, considering that the ordinary level examination is underway. You don't know how to drive a train. You cannot simply flip a switch.
There were parties in the past who shot and killed people if a mother or father lit an oil lamp, so their child had light to study. It is good if you think about this too. There are also political parties which stage strikes to gain votes when an election is nearby. There have been several rounds of talks to resolve this issue. Do not take the freedom that has been given by this government and turn it into a wild ass's freedom. Would the father be engaging trade union action if he was being considerate of his child's examinations?
The decision to oppress the working class in this way has been declared by this government as soon as they came into power. Through this Gazette notification, this government is oppressing the working class who are engaged in this strike. We are in favour of talks and dialogue. We request the government to be considerate in this matter and to hold sympathetic dialogue with the railway workers and grant them their rights. The government should not be poring over old and rotted law books looking for ways to oppress the working class.
Remember that this government has been named the Good Governance Government. The opposing Mahinda Chintaniya and Mahinda regime did not have this meaning, and while they may have done what they wanted, the Good Governance Government cannot do so. Therefore, we believe that you will work out of respect for that word. It should be your duty to hold talks with the trade unions and resolve these matters. You cannot resolve this matter like a blind man beating everyone around him with a pole. If there is someone behind this action, then you must reveal that too. This is also your duty as a government.
It is disappointing that the Public Security Ordinance has been used to issue a gazette encompassing the railway service and all related services. It is clear through this that this democratic government is unable to resolve problems. If the government thinks that it can oppress the dissent of trade unions and then turn it into a victory, then the government is mistaken. The government will fail. We call on the government to withdraw this serious order and to also withdraw the notifications of employment termination. There are about 500,000 students sitting for the examinations this month.
When you want to get new vehicles for ministers or new officers or other facilities, then you submit supplementary estimates here and approve the spending of billions of rupees. But there is no room in your hearts or no wish to provide for the reasonable demands of the railway workers. Today you are using essential services gazettes to bring railways under military control, and you are hitting two birds with one stone. One factor is the conflict you are creating between the military and working people.
The Secretary to the President spoke with these unions for 4 hours. During these talks, it was brought up that the examinations have been gazetted and that union action should be postponed. I wish to table the letter that was signed following this discussion. This has been signed by the Secretary of the Locomotive Engineers Union and the Secretary of the Ministry of Transport. This letter states that as per consensus reached with the Transport Secretary, the strike will be suspended. This was signed on the 8th of December. We were forced to declare it an essential service because despite this agreement, they staged the strike anyway. On the matter of wages, we asked them to postpone it for 2 weeks as it is still before Cabinet. It has not been dismissed. A committee has been appointed and discussions are being held with the Salary and Cadre Commission. It is true that as an essential service, holidays are cancelled, but we have informed the Railways Department not to issue letters of them having vacated their posts as yet. But if they continue to refuse to turn up, then we will have to do it. The reason being that we must provide this service to the people of this country. As it is an essential service, there is a legal situation. Given that what they are doing is wrong, we must enforce it. But I told them yesterday that since their children too will be sitting for the examination, they should stop this immediately and come for negotiations. I told them this morning too that negotiations are still possible.
After the MPs expressed their views, a vote was called for the motion. While the Constitutional Assembly also convened in Parliament today, the Speaker had to suspend the sitting due to the absence of the members who were scheduled to speak.
We now cross over to the Newsfirst Christmas Centre at Echelon Square, where Ramesh is standing by. Ramesh, over to you. We now cross over to the Newsfirst Christmas Centre at Echelon Square, where Ramesh...
The railway services was made an essential service a couple of days ago. Now this decision was ratified in Parliament today as well, and the railway trade unions need to keep in mind that this is now an essential service. We need to inform the trade unions. You are playing around with the lives of 600,000 students who are sitting for their GCE O-level examination. This is the future of our country. There are some schools that can only be reached by train. There are some students who rely only on the train service to reach their school because of their annual or monthly stipend that they get. Now, if you take away this service to go to their examination centers, you're putting a fresh challenge in their education journey. Now, as this is an essential service, there is something that the trade unions should keep in mind. Legal action can be taken against them. A case can be filed in the magistrate's court, and there are some serious repercussions in place. They could be imprisoned for a period of 2 to 5 years under the Essential Services Act. They could be fined 2,000 to 5,000 rupees. They could be terminated from their employment, and most of all, their assets could be seized. So the trade unions should keep this in mind. We need to reiterate that they are playing around with the lives of and the future of this country. Now, the train strike is also affecting our economy. There are billions of losses being caused due to this train strike on a daily basis. Now, when the doctors were on strike, the officials took steps to make that an essential service as well. However, what did they do afterwards? They did not take any action when the doctors did not report to work. Now, imagine if there was a precedent. Imagine if the officials actually took some action after making this an essential service. Then the train services, then the railway services and the trade unions involved in these services would not oppose this Essential Services Act in this way. It is most likely that there is a political force behind this trade union action as well. So if there is a political force behind this trade union action, then there are provisions in this Public Essential Services Act that could take action against these forces as well. The assets of these political forces could also be seized under this Essential Services Act. Maybe what we need now is some decisive action like that taken by Singaporean President Lee Kuan Yew. Let's turn our attention to some of the views expressed by Lee Kuan Yew when he was faced with a strike by pilots.
I can tell you that when I met the SIA pilots, I didn't meet them on TV. I met them face to face, 5 feet across the table, so they can see me and see whether I'm still vigorous, able to campaign and take them on. And I offered them 2 choices. Either you argue, you stop this intimidation, which is what it was, ruining his reputation, millions of dollars worth of advertisements and sales ruined within a matter of 2 weeks. I gave them a choice. Continue this, and I will, by every means at my disposal, teach you and get the people of Singapore, help me teach you a lesson you won't forget. And I'm prepared to start all over again, or stop it, get back to work, restore discipline, then argue your case. Took them 65 minutes, and they decided, okay, it isn't worth the fight. Why? Because they know they'll lose. They know that I'm prepared to ground the airline. They know that I can get the airline going again without them. And let there be no mistakes about this. Whoever governs Singapore must have that iron in him, or give it up. This is not a game of cards. This is your life and mine. I've spent a whole lifetime building this. And as long as I'm in charge, nobody's going to knock it down.
If you've never visited the Echelon Square in Colombo, you're missing out, because this place is alive with the Christmas buzz. If you have visited before, that's alright. Come down anyway and experience a first or a lifetime first here at the Echelon Square. Why? Because this is the Newsfirst Christmas Centre right here at Echelon Square. For the first time, you can experience a live news bulletin right here at the square. You can see how things are done here at the Echelon Square. You might be able to do a screen test. You might get a chance to do a voice test. You might be famous. And who knows, at the very least, while watching the live news, you can be like the people here. You might see your face on public TV. So don't miss out on this opportunity. And now, without any further delay, let's head over to the news. Back to you, Ramesh. So don't miss out.
Well, thank you, Shehan, for that update. I'm back in the News First Christmas Center. Let's get on with more headline-making stories. News First has, of course, been following the situation with regard to the shortage of fertilizer. Now, farmers in Ampara today took to the streets to protest against the shortage of urea fertilizer.
Ampara arrived at a fertilizer storage facility owned by the Government Agriculture Department in Ampara this morning upon receiving news that stocks had been dispatched. Subsequently, the farmers contacted the official in charge of the storage facility over the phone. The farmers then staged a demonstration opposite the Ampara District Secretariat.
ඔබතුමා මේ ගැන මොකද කියන්නේ? දැන් අපි ගවඩාවල ගියා බලන්න නැහැ. කඩවල වල බැලුවා නැහැ. මොකද කියන්නේ තමුන්නාස් මේ ගැන? කියන්න තියෙන්නේ ඉතින් පොර සමස්ත ඉතිහාස තියෙනවා. ඔව් දැනට ඉතින් පොර සමහර විට මේ 25 විතර වෙනකොට පොර එනවා කියලා තමයි කියන්නේ. ඔව් ඊයේ පොහොර වගේ කෙව්වා කියලා ආරංචියක් තිබුණා. ඒකත් නැහැ නේ අපි දැන් උදේ ගියානේ බලන්න. ඊට පස්සේ මාධ්‍ය හරහා බොරුත් කියනවනේ මේ පාලකයෝ නේද? ඔව් කියලා වැඩක් නැහැ.
Tensions flared when an official informed the farmers that they were hampering traffic flow by blocking the gate. The farmers then met with the District Secretary of Ampara, Tusita P. Vanasinghe. 9,768 have been recommended for the fertilizer subsidy, and it should either arrive tomorrow or the day after. There has been a delay in supplying fertilizer. I spoke with the Secretary to the Ministry of Agriculture today as well, and he said 7 lorries would be dispatched today. I explained the need to him. I informed him that there are fields which have not received the first round of urea and noted that there is a need for 2,000 metric tons. I made it clear to him, and the Secretary to the Agriculture Ministry noted that the fertilizer would be provided somehow. These state-owned organizations have neglected their responsibilities. We suspect whether it was neglect or whether it was deliberate. Through this, what happens is that the private sector is conferred with the responsibility of supplying fertilizer. It has been conferred to the private sector that it is through this that they receive their commissions. So we suspect that by weakening state-owned fertilizer corporations and conferring the responsibility to the private sector, the ministers and MPs are receiving a commission. If it has been given to the private sector, then the private sector must take responsibility for this. The government must file cases against those private corporations and should get them to pay compensation to the farmers.
Another headline-making story tonight. A demonstration was held today protesting the failure to pay compensation to people who lost lands and homes due to the construction of the Central Expressway project. Now, the protesters blocked the supply route to the Central Expressway from the Malpite junction in Pothuhera, Kurunagala.
Our correspondent in the area noted that residents of Nuwara, Meerigama, Pothuhera, Kurunagala and Malpitiya, who have been deprived of compensation, participated in this demonstration.
The people were promised that compensation would be paid even for a curry tree, but now there is no compensation even for a coconut tree. A coconut cost 100 rupees now, but the lands have been valued only at 90,000 rupees. The value of a coconut tree is only estimated as 600 rupees. These people are facing major injustices on every front. A sum of 4.5 billion rupees per kilometer has been allocated per kilometer from Pothuhera to Galagedara. Is this road being built out of gold? Are they using gemstones instead of rocks? The total estimated expenditure is over 14 billion. They are only paying about 75,000 for some of the wells. People paid 300,000 or 400,000 rupees to dig these wells. This government is preparing to lower the status of the people by providing low valuations. Lakshman Kiryala does not understand the feelings of these people and the suffering they will undergo in the future. Minister Lakshman Kiryala has become a minister who is used by other officials to skim off large sums of money.
A large number of wells will be destroyed. While they told us that we would be given lands, we have not received any land. No payments have been made either. They have not given us anything they promised.
Addressing a public meeting in Kurunegala yesterday, leader of the JVP, Anukumara Dissanayake, expressed these views on those involved in the bond scam.
Now Ranil Wickremesinghe is neck deep in trouble with the Bond Commission issue. Many murders are solved based on factual evidence gathered, and just like that, the facts surrounding the bond scam can prove that he is connected to it. He appointed an individual who is not a citizen of this country as governor of the central bank. 2 weeks later, I questioned him about this, and he answered, while protecting Arjun Aloysius. When a presidential commissioner was appointed, he feared that all this will be revealed and appointed 3 of his own henchmen into the commission. A Tamil minister who was already part of the COPE quit suddenly, and Sujiva Senasinghe was added to it. While COPE was inquiring into the bond scam, certain people in the council had conversations with the rogues. After that, Arjun Aloysius' tenure ended, but Ranil still tried to keep him. Then the commission was appointed and many revelations were made there. When we consider all this, who is the mastermind behind the bond scam? It's Ranil Wickremesinghe. There is nothing more to hide. Ranil Wickremesinghe.
Now, Deputy Leader of the National Freedom Front, Veerakumara Dissanayake, former Party Secretary P.S. Vijayanagara and former North Central Provincial Councillor P.D. Kumara received membership of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party by President Maithripala Sirisena this morning at the Presidential Secretariat.
They said they joined the party to help the president in his future plans and to support the SLFP in the upcoming elections. Veerakumara Dissanayake, P.S. Vijayanagara and P.D. Kumara, who received membership of the SLFP, convened a media briefing.
During the past 6 months, President addressed issues related to the Constitution and war heroes. Certain changes were made. Several members of the joint changed their minds constantly. I told the President the gravity of this, and he listened to us. He understood and made the necessary changes. We started believing in the system because of that. We know we can do the needful here. The country will be destroyed if we don't join hands with the leaders in overcoming the challenges. 2020 is targeted as the year when the UMP will take over the presidency. We can change it only if we join them and the Sri Lanka Freedom Party.
On more local news now, leader of the Janaseta Peramuna, Venerable Bathramulle Siraratanathero, convened a media briefing today.
All political parties are now falling over themselves to get the opportunity to work for the villagers. Although they obtain power to work for the country, they are brainless. Now GL Peiris and Basil Rajapaksa are waiting in the Flowerbud party. Today there is greed to obtain power.
Now, the second reading and debate on the Appropriation Amendment Bill for the financial year 2017 was held in Parliament today. The bill was passed without any amendments. 53 votes were cast against it, or rather 53 votes were cast for it, while 8 were cast against it.
Mr. Speaker, the economy exhibited mixed performance during the first 9 months of this year. The economy grew at a rate of 3.9% in real terms in the first half of the year compared to the same period in the previous year, significantly marking below potential growth prospects. As approved provisions in the budget 2017 may render insufficient to meet all payment obligations during the fiscal year 2017, it is needed to mobilize additional funds by means of borrowing. Accordingly, it is required to increase the borrowing limit from 1,579.1 billion to rupees 1,629 billion by amending the Section 2B of the Appropriation Act number 24 of 2016 to increase the borrowing limit accordingly, and I now present the Appropriation Amendment Bill for the approval of this House. Thank you.
In the last year's report, we raised the issue that accurate figures were not there in the budget estimates that are presented, and that after the minister's speech, budget speech, those figures have to be necessarily amended. The actual figures are not available, actual estimates are not available to members of parliament. Unfortunately, this year too, those figures have not been presented to parliament. The minister's proposals, particularly the welfare proposals and even other developmental activities, should not go into a contingency fund and be allowed to be used at the discretion of the minister, but must be treated as a firm commitment and allocations made specifically for those.
Meanwhile, the second reading of the new anti-dumping bill was also held in Parliament today.
The anti-dumping and countervailing measures and the safeguard measures bill being presented to Parliament today will be vital domestic legislation to facilitate protecting domestic industry from unfair trading practices. I am pleased that our government was able to present this bill, which has been delayed for many years. These are only remedial measures in the event of injury to the domestic industry caused by dumping or by subsidization or by sudden surges of imports. The primary purpose behind these trade remedy measures is to re-establish fair competition and to provide the domestic industry a level playing field. It is important to understand that dumping is not just about cheap or low price imports. It means goods entering at a price lower than its normal value. Once this is established, can the trade remedy measures be considered.
The debate and vote on the bill was postponed 3rd of January following strong objections from the opposition.
Well, addressing an event in Kandy recently, former Deputy Mayor of Kandy and Private Secretary to the President, Asanka Dodangwela, spoke on the development of the Central Province.
I understand the challenges and the aspirations faced by the people of the city and the people of the Central Province. Although every previous government had a stated commitment to the development of Kandy, no comprehensive economic and social development plan was ever developed and executed at the apex level. I mean the top level. This is a source of disappointment to residents whose expectations were dashed by successive governments. Whatever development has taken place in the last few years, maybe 4 to 5 years or 5 to 6 years, has been by the Kandy Municipal Council.
We now join Ramesh Irugal Bandara once again at the Newsfirst Christmas Centre at the Echelon Square. Ramesh?
Now, we are going back to one of our earlier stories, Shane, to emphasize this point. The decision to make railway services an essential service was made a couple of days ago. Now, we heard the railway trade union saying today that they are going to seek a legal redress. They are going to go to the international arena to file their grievances against this decision to make it an essential service. Now, we need to remind these trade unions that their decision is impacting a number of aspects of our life. They are playing around with the lives of 600,000 students who are sitting for the GCE ordinary level examination. They are messing with the economy of this country by causing losses worth billions and billions on a daily basis. Now, getting back to the students, there are plenty of students who rely on the train services to get to their schools, and now their examination centers. One, there are certain schools that only a train can reach, and there are also students who rely solely on the train services to get to their schools. So you are playing around with the lives of all these students. Now, when railway services is made an essential service, there are certain legal ramifications that go along with it if you do not comply with this Essential Services Act. Now, what can be done under this act? There will be a magistrate court case that will be filed against those who do not comply with these orders, and through this court case there are a number of steps that can be taken. One, you could be imprisoned for 2 to 5 years. You could be fined for 2,000 rupees or 5,000 rupees. Most importantly, your term of office will be terminated and your assets can be seized under these regulations. Now, we reiterate to the trade unions, do not play around with the lives of these students. Do not play around with the lives of the future generation of our country. Now, when doctors were on strike, the government took steps to make that an essential service as well. Afterwards, they did not take any action with regard to this Essential Services Act. However, had they taken some action, today we might not be in this place, we might not be in this situation where the train services or the railway trade unions would be opposing this move to make railway services an essential service. And it is an essential service to the country. So maybe what we need right now is decisive action on the part of the government with regard to these issues. Unfortunately, that's all the news we have for you tonight. For the News First team, I'm Ramesh Bandara. Good night and take care.